while I was on the ferry and say, "Sven, can you share with me the password for the Wi-Fi on the ferry?" And I said, "Well, the good news is."
I just assumed by like, at least I'd get halfway there. I knew at some point it was going to end, but my phone worked, but my computer didn't.
The person is in charge. No, he's right back there. That's how we keep ticket prices down.
I really like that.
I saw you quoted in the paper this morning, Sven.
What?
You were quoted in the property this morning.
In a good quote or a bad quote? Okay.
It's funny, some of the stuff about the Supreme Court.
That was a little.
All set, ready to go? Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the New Shoreham Town Council meeting for Friday, April 29th, 10 a.m. I'll call the meeting to order at roughly 10:17. Items on the agenda are to meet with the town lobbyist, Rick McAuliffe of Mayforth Group, to discuss the legislative agenda and other items of interest. Item number 2 is an update on the state police for the summer of 2022. With that, I will turn it over to our lobbyist, Rick McAuliffe. If anybody has any questions, I'll ask you to just hold on to them until he's done speaking. And if you do like to speak, I would ask that you step up to the microphone and identify yourself for the YouTube visitors and our lobbyist himself.
Great.
Are we YouTubing this or not?
It's being YouTube, but it's not interactive with YouTube.
Is it worth to choose a position so Rick's over there so that YouTube can see him?
I do have a face for radio. I prefer, no, okay, whatever you want me to do.
Rick.
Okay.
Bye.
Can, well, everyone can hear me. It's great to see everyone here today. For some new faces, it's nice to meet you all. My name is Rick McAuliffe, and I've had the pleasure of representing the town now for, I guess about 5 months, and it's been an absolute pleasure to do this. What I'm hoping to do today is talk about what's been done as of today, talk about any couple things going on at the State House generally, and then specifically to Block Island, both state and federally, and then obviously I'll entertain any questions that go to the council that come to me, so I can do that. Let me talk about the state first and foremost. There were 3 resolutions that were sent by the council to the General Assembly in which I was asked to help coordinate on those, and one was housing, one was a tax reevaluation or tax classification, the ability for enabling legislation to look at it. And the last one was an opportunity for enabling legislation to do a reevaluation of the house of property before the end of the year. So we tried it as best we can, and this was obviously well before I was done, but the Representative Filippi and Senator Sosnowski have always done a very good job of trying to put the hearings together at the same time. And they did that again this year. So we had on April 12th, we had a pretty active day that day. It started actually first at the Department of Commerce. We have had 2 meetings. Knowing that housing is so important in the town, we had 2 meetings so far with the housing czar. Governor McKee hired a gentleman named Josh Saul. Josh is the new housing czar for the state of Rhode Island. And we had a Zoom call with him probably in early February, maybe late February, I should say. And he asked us to come back to him again in person, and we did that on April 12th. We had the town manager, many of the council were there. We had a discussion about housing, and we talked about the unique situation that that the residents here have, which is the fact that the housing prices are the largest, or actually the highest prices in the state of Rhode Island, and yet the income of the normal Block Island resident is much lower than that. So there's a gap that needs to be addressed. He was very understanding of it. He'd like to come out here and actually see it. So our third touch with the Department of Commerce on this issue, we'll be having him come out here as well. We were looking for some grant money to start looking at ways to find solutions to this problem. He has not said yes to it, but that's something that we're working on right now. In addition, we've had a couple conversations, so everyone knows, with the Department of Commerce. I have another call with them today, specifically on broadband. Amy Land, as you know, has been very involved with the broadband and so forth, and we are looking to get some money. I had lunch with my former boss, Senator Reed, and specifically talked about broadband because I know the residents of Block Island voted in favor of a bond to help do this. But the hope is that we can get some federal money to help offset whatever money that the town paid. So we're excited about that. We have our second call again today at 4 o'clock. So we have those two things that are going on with administratively. On the legislation part, again, it was housing, tax classification, and reval. And I just wanted to let everyone know, the hearings have been held on 4 of the 6 bills. And I say 4 of the 6 bills, 3 categories, but you have a House bill and you have a Senate bill. So that's why there's 6. So housing, Bill 7723, we had the hearing that day, and the counterpart that Senator Sosnowski has is 2621. We had that hearing as well. The hearing went very, very well. Kudos to our members that spoke on that. Andre spoke on it, as well as the housing director, and I spoke on it as well. In the years past, we've tried to move the income eligibility for affordable housing. The Housing Network, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, advocate of housing in the state, had opposition to this for years. Fortunately, I think we had a good meeting, and I've had a couple follow-up meetings with the Housing Network, and they now are in favor of our legislation. They want to tweak a few things. One of the things they want to make sure is they're very proud of what this community has done when it comes to affordable housing. They do want to have a kicker in there that if the town ever goes below 10%, then that income eligibility would change. But we're working hard on it, and so we feel very comfortable about it. Both bills have been held pending the amended language. We have to amend the bill, which was commonly known as a substitute amendment, or slang would be sub A. So once I get that bill sub A, we should have that. And I'll talk about what's happened in the last 6 weeks. On taxes, Sven has worked very hard on this, as other council people have, but Sven has really been the person working on this. And we had 7992, which is the House version by Representative Filippi, and 2879 by Senator Wisnowski. Those bills were heard the same day. No, that's not true. One was heard on April 12th in the House. They listened to us intently. There was no objection. It was a long day, and they heard the bill and held it to further study, which is common for a bill to be looked at and then come back and so forth. But Sven came up on Tuesday. It's been a long week, but he came up on Tuesday and he testified, and he did such a great job that the Senate decided to make a motion to pass the bill. And on Tuesday, it will be on the Senate floor. It will be voted on the Senate on Tuesday. That bill will then go over to the House. Once it's over in the House, I fully expect the House to pass the House version of the bill, put it on the House floor along with the Senate bill. So once a bill passes the Senate, it's got to go to the House. It goes into the same committee. So what we'll see is the House Committee on Municipal Affairs will have the Senate bill that passed and the House bill that's before them. They'll pass both of them, hopefully in concurrence, and then bring them to the floor. They'll pass the House floor. The House bill will have to go over to the Senate side because I haven't seen it on its side. But bottom line is, I think we're in very good shape. That is, again, enabling legislation. It does not do anything other than give the council and residents of that serve on committees the opportunity to look at the tax structure here on the island. It's not uncommon. We know that Johnston, Lincoln, and some other communities are doing that as well. So that's what we've done on taxes. And then reval, the council came to me recently, I think 10 days ago. I think Millie sent the information in. The bills were both introduced this week. One was introduced on Tuesday. One was introduced on Wednesday. And I'm fully expected to get some hearings on that within the next 2 weeks. So that's where we are with those pieces of legislation. Let me stop for a second just to kind of talk about how the session is going to end. So session usually ends by June 30th. The General Assembly passes probably 90% of their bills that last week of session. Usually, that's when committee hearings, they want everything heard. That's when they just move things really quick. By law, or the rules of the House, not by the law, and the rules of the Senate, but bills have to be posted 48 hours in advance. Now, in the past, they've waived the rules, but this leadership on both House and Senate for open transparency have always kept it to 48 hours. So we always will know 48 hours in advance when these bills are coming up. But there will be a rush in the coming weeks as to get these bills through. My job and Jeff Taylor, our job will be to get all our bills out of committee, on the floor, passed, and also make sure they do the dance, which is if it's a Senate bill, it's got to go over to the House to be looked at. If it's a House bill, it's got to go over to the Senate. And then obviously we have to make sure that it passes with the governor. I had lunch with the governor last Friday, not this time, 12 o'clock last Friday, on a number of things, but we talked about these bills and he had no problems with it. So I don't foresee any veto or any problems like that. These are 3 good bills that are going to go through. This is a unique year, because for the first time in a long time, the state is flush with cash, which I know will be a conversation in about 5 minutes. But the state is in a unique situation. They received $1.2 billion from the federal government. They've spent 110 million of that 1.2 already. So about 110 of the 1.2 has been spent on housing and some other areas, childcare and so forth. So there's roughly about $1 billion. The General Assembly also has, in this current fiscal year, a surplus based on November numbers of $618 million. Now, the General Assembly twice a year have what they call, not the General Assembly, well, General Assembly and Administration have what they call revenue estimating conference. So every November and every May, they bring in actuaries, they bring in outside consultants, and they say, where are we? And they always do that in November, and they do that in May. And what they look at is our income tax collections going on time? Where's our gambling revenue? Where's our sales tax? All that kind of stuff. But they also look at caseload. Are there more people on state assistance? Are there more people Medicaid on Medicaid, or more people in our nursing homes, or more people getting state subsidized childcare and things like that? So that's how they balance it. So they did it in November, and it came up with $618 million. Having lunch and speaking with the governor last week and talking to some people in the General Assembly, they now expect that to be well over $700 million. And that will be announced. They're going to start the conference next week. So by next Friday or so, we'll know how much money the state has. So if you combine the $1 billion plus 800 million, we may have $1.8 billion. It is unprecedented in the state's history. Here's what's unique about it. There's 3 aspects of the governor's budget where the money's coming. One is his normal budget, tax, based on tax revenue, sales tax, income tax, gambling revenue, and so forth. That's the first component. The second component is the stimulus bill, the American Rescue Plan Act that was passed at $1.2 billion. That money he wants to use in a separate way. He still wants to address issues, but he sees that more as investment. So the first part of the budget I talked about is his normal, making sure the trains run on time, making sure we can do that. The investments are really with the ARPA money, and that ARPA money has to be spent, excuse me, in the next 3 years. It's got to be approved. It's got to be allocated next year. They need 2 years. They ask for 2 years, and we've already gotten through 1 year. So that money has to be allocated, and then they have 3 years to spend it. And then they have this current fiscal year where they have more money. So unlike previous years where they have cut services, raise taxes, do different things, they're not going to have to do it this year. So the question is, what do they do with that $700 million? I had lunch with the House, the Senate President and Senate Majority Leader on Wednesday, and I asked them specifically that question. And they plan on making some investments. Housing is the number one issue they have. There's without not even housing. That's what they talked about. They see some investment in workforce development, and they see investment in childcare. Specifically, they would Senate President Ruggiero would like to speed up the universal pre-K in the state of Rhode Island. I think it's 8 years. He would like to do it in 3. So that's some of the stuff they do. But they also want to take some of that money and they want to set it aside because, like all of us, they're concerned about the economy and so forth with inflation and what's going to happen. So they want to put some in the rainy day fund. What that is, I don't know. But again, that would be in the current fiscal year. So that money is their surplus in this current fiscal year. They cannot use ARPA money to be used for just putting it away. So that's kind of where they are. I bring all that stuff up because the question is, what kind of timing are we going to have? Usually the budget will come out by about right after Memorial Day, and I don't think that'll change. So around Memorial Day, we'll have an idea where the budget is. And then I fully expect them to take up the budget shortly thereafter and do that. Why is that important? Because usually once the budget's passed, which is their number one responsibility as the council as here, they do then address all the budgetary, I'm sorry, all the legislation. So it's our job to make sure that these bills I mentioned are passed, to get the housing bill, the tax classification, and the reval passed during that time. We have heard that they're hoping to get out June 10th. But I always add 10 days to whatever they say because it's always been that case. Bottom line is, I think second to third week of June, they will have a budget pass and it'll go to the governor, and that fiscal year will begin July 1. It is an election year, so they want to get out earlier than they they normally do. I don't know if you're all aware of it. There's an election year going this year. And so that's where we are on that stuff. So I think it's been good so far. I've enjoyed working with the council and town manager. I think I speak to many of you daily, if not weekly. And I do think the presence of having someone up there every day has helped. The next thing I want to talk about, because I know we have other issues to discuss, is when I first came to you and put my proposal, and I talked about appropriations. And so we are working right now on a number of things. We put in an appropriation to Senator Reed and Senator Whitehouse for the fire barn. We've been working with people within the fire department to see what we can do. We had a conference call with them about a month ago. The deadline was April 8th for submission to Senator Reed and Senator Whitehouse. We got the submission in. Marianne worked very, very hard on that, and we were able to put it together. The good news is Senator Whitehouse has already gotten back to us, his staff. They're very interested in working with us. We do have some obstacles we have to work with, which is nothing new to anyone here. We meet the requirement of under 2,500 residents. But when you look at the average income of 71,000, it's higher than what the USDA allows. This is nothing new to any of you. So one of the things we have to do is prove why this is important to have this in there. Appropriations can circumvent law. What I'm saying is, if a legislator wants to appropriate something, they can do that without the criteria, but we're trying to get an idea where we're going to do that. We're hoping to get a couple $1 million on that. Actually put a request in for much more than that. And we're working on that. We also work with the medical center. The medical center put an appropriation request in as well. Kudos to them for all the hard work that they put in there. And those are the two that we did now. There was a discussion about looking at a potential boating house at the Overlook property, but we thought it was too early in the process in which to do that. So those are the three that we looked at. Two of them, we acted on it. And so that's kind of where we are today. And before we get into the next thing, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on the legislative piece.
Thank you, Rick. Council?
I'll start. You mentioned monies that are available and priorities, and you said housing was number one.
Yes.
Does it have to be shovel-ready projects?
Nope. As a matter of fact, it does not have to be. It's a great it's a great question. There'll be a combination of shovel-ready projects, but there'll also be a combination of opportunities for consultants and so forth to figure out some of the issues, for instance, that this town has. When we met with Josh Saul, one of the things he said to us is, hey, I want to help you out, but I got to wait for the budget to come out. So that's kind of where we are. So Mark, it's a great question. Some of it's shovel ready, but they're going to be looking at the totality of how do we handle housing, not only the housing stock that's currently in there, how do we rehab it? What are the rules and regulations in which to guide that? And what can communities do? Our situation is obviously unique, and that's one of the things we're talking about. But there will be opportunity for money for physical infrastructure right away. Don't get me wrong. And I think there's also be an authorization. So while it's more common in Washington to authorize authorize 4 or 5 years out and spend all year. I think the state wants to do something similar, but they go year to year on budgets, unlike Washington.
I'm just going to reinforce what you said earlier. It is a dance up there.
Yep.
You're constantly, it's like a ping pong
Yep.
match. It's constantly going back and forth
Yep.
until hopefully we'll get the answer we want.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I think the presence we had in, on April 12th, I think went a long way. I think people are really understanding that there's a housing issue here that's different and apart. And I'll tell you, we went before the committee and we had 3 legislators from the urban core, Providence, Central Falls, and Pawtucket. And they asked questions to them, when they saw what the average income was on this island compared to what they have in areas like South Providence or in Beveridge Hill and Pawtucket, they look and say, you know, how can you say that's not affordable? Once we told them the story, they changed. As a matter of fact, I got a call from one of the representatives that said he did a good job in letting us know. They understand the unique situation that we have. And I think one of the things that really, I know you all want to accomplish, as much as getting money and passing legislation, was to let people know that the island exists and they have real problems that other communities have. And I think that helped.
Sven, go ahead.
And maybe it's, we're also familiar with it because we were at, or many of us were at the meeting, but at least for everybody else, can you just describe a little bit the discussion with Saul and the Commerce Group? The goal is to get monies for, you know, whatever the amount is for sort of this pilot work. Could you maybe just
Yep,
discuss
so-
that a little bit just for everybody in the room?
Yeah, so one of the things that was very unique, and this town deserves a lot of applause on this for doing this, is looking at ways outside of the box. And one of the things that we presented to Saul, Josh Saul, was the fact that there are public properties within the island. So here, obviously the school, the hospital and everything. So we talked about a few things. One, there's not a community in the country that's building affordable housing above their medical center. There's not a community in the country that's building on their plans to build affordable housing above their fire bond. And obviously to address the issues of the firefighters and address the issues of medical staff. But in addition, there's opportunities on public property to build even more affordable housing. So we talked to Josh about that. And he found that very unique. They got into the weeds, which is over my head. But we discussed how that works. And so what we're hoping to do is get some pilot money, not only to look at how to do it, but also pilot money on how to build it. And so that's something that we're looking to do. That's outside the box and candidly unique to Block Island. I don't know any other community that's going to say, you know, let's build affordable housing on our police complex, or I don't know how many town managers have, there's a facility, a home there for them. So this is something different that we're all looking at. And that's kind of the uniqueness that we talked about and why we need, pilot money, because we're probably, anything we do is not going to break the glass on the island off the island, because it's a unique situation here that you won't see in other communities.
Right, and just for everybody's knowledge, that's really the focus is on Ball O'Brien. And as we think about rental units, how do you get that ball started? Where's the money come to get the engineering, the scoping, vision, all that planning and project work? So that was really a big part of the.
Having Cindy there was a very big thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
And to follow up on that, Rick, we discussed, it's all contingent on how his office is funded.
Correct. That's a great point.
Which isn't funded yet. He doesn't have a cent.
No. That's the problem. But because, as I was saying, that housing is the number one issue, he will be, I don't want to use the word flush with cash, but he will have money he's not had before. It's our job, since we came in February, and we've also come in April, and we want to have them come here this summer. It's going to be great to be able to get ahead of everyone else. And I think that's one of the things as your lobbyist I was able to do was advocate before the money came, rather than, we just saw money, let's go get it now. So I think we're ahead of other people. Not to say that other people have talked about housing, they have, but that's where we are.
Can you let us know when those hearings are on that budget?
So that budget, so they've already started holding hearings on the budget. I can get you some, I can get you the hearing, I can film it, send it, the film to you. They are the video to it. They already held hearings back in, I want to say February on the housing stuff. But whatever money they asked for, the governor's budget, I know that the General Assembly is adding more to it, but I'll put some information together for you all.
We can send, I think, would it help us? I think it'll help us if we send a letter and support that budget from the town council.
Yes, but here's what I would do. What I would suggest respectfully is that a letter goes Representative Filippi and Senator Cisnowski, and I can work with the town manager and then get it back to you for you all to send it, saying we're writing in support of the FY23 budget, which is going before you right now. There are some things that we would like to highlight that we would like to see addressed in your budget. And a first talking point would be housing and why it's important. Then we could talk about some other things. So I would strongly recommend a letter that's more detailed, not just to housing, but 3 or 4 points that are important to the island, and that we can get to them and do that. And I would send it to both the representatives, and then I will also send it to the leadership and to the governor. The governor has submitted his budget, but most likely after next week, when he sees that there's more in the budget, he may put forward a supplemental budget, and that's what we want to do. And the supplemental budget, which I know we're going to talk about in the other issue, will be in concurrence with the current budget.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have consensus here that that's a good idea. We would like to do that.
And I'll help draft that. I'll help draft that letter for you, working with the insight of input of all of you, and then get it back. I'll work with town manager. I'll work with Mary Ann to do that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Keith, did you have a comment?
I just had a few things. One is, you sort of glossed over it, Rick, but a broader point that I hope people take away, if they're, for people who are here, people who are watching, people who are considering this, is that retaining a lobbyist is a long-term play. It's not just about sort of what are we getting next week, but the analogy is, I guess, for us, you couldn't build a bridge to the mainland in 3 months. It's going to take longer than that, and it's an investment that will pay dividends over time. And I think those of us who were at the Capitol, have been at the Capitol with you, Cindy and I know even talked about this, just how valuable it was to have someone who was engaged on our behalf, and just how much easier the day went even. But you glossed over the conversation with the housing advocate who had opposed our median income change bill. And to me, that work that you and Jeff did to reach out to her, figure out what that organization's concerns were, propose a solution to the challenge they had, get that executed, is something that really bears repeating, because it's one of those things that really demonstrates the value. I mean, as a practical matter, we're all, we all have lives. We don't wake up in the morning and say, who do I have to reach out to get this bill passed? And I just wanted to say I really appreciated that work, because it's a small thing, but it potentially could have derailed the bill to have housing advocates say, why is Block Island getting this? So thank you.
I appreciate that, Keith. I will tell you, I do think the one thing that a lobbyist can do, that's effective is, and you all know this, you meet with a legislator, you do the hearing, but when the hearing is over or the conversation's over, they move on to the next thing. And you need someone there that can work behind the scenes and also work between the meetings to get things done. And I appreciate that. And I will say, Cindy did a good job. I got pretty fired up that night. I had to get up there. I wasn't planning on speaking. If anyone can see the video, they were ready to close the hearing, and I jumped up and said I'd like to speak. And I did that because I knew the issue was important, but I also knew Cindy had the facts, and it was where it needs to be. What my job was to paint the picture from what Cindy said and what the island has to legislators who may, and I mentioned the, legislators from the urban areas that didn't understand the Block Island piece. And so that's what I was trying to do. And I think it helped because we did get a call from the Housing Network the next day. I know you've spoken to them. I've spoken to them numerous times, and they've had a conversation with the speaker. So there'll be language, which obviously I'll get to you and get to the council. But I appreciate you saying that, Keith. And I forgot to mention, we also met with the state senator, DeMario, Elena DeMario. She is the Elena with an A. She is the new senator, or I should say, that district will be expanded into Block Island. As you know, Senator Sosnowski will no longer be representing the island. If Senator DeMario wins re-election, she'll be the state senator. And we thought it was important to go meet with her. And Senator Sosnowski couldn't have been more generous, bringing her into the meeting and explaining stuff. And I've had 2 meetings with Senator DeMario just without anyone there telling about the issues on the island. She's very excited about it.
That's great. And then just one more sort of bug to put in your ear as the budget comes out and moves forward. We're at the budget that's going to be before the financial town meeting next week. Includes what a lot of us think is a very important step, which is the creation of a full-time director of human services, which the island has never had before. It may be one of the only towns, maybe one of the only towns that doesn't have a director of human services. And I think many of us view that as not just an opportunity to provide services, but as an opportunity to have a new conduit for state and federal money to support, sort of, as Marianne says, from age 0 to age 110. Now that I saw Don McCluskey and he's 102, I'm pushing that out. And so please pay attention. I assume that there's going to be a slug of dough that is going to be focused on basic human services stuff. And we're making that investment and would like to be a part of that conversation, sort of how small communities can manage sort of full spectrum human services coordination. So just please keep an eye on that.
That's news to me, and I'm happy to hear that, Keith, because there's been a big focus on the care economy in Rhode Island, around the country, but in the care economy, as we see an aging population, as we see people in the state with real needs. Believe it or not, Rhode Island has about 22% of their residents are Medicaid eligible, which either means they're older, sicker, or poor. And I would guess if 22% of the state is Medicaid eligible, that it reflects the island as well. I will tell you, working with the Department of Health, it's amazing how many people work at the Department of Health that are actually paid for by federal grants. Because they're always available. So that would be very helpful. I do think, and you made me, one of the things that I would like to see, if I'm fortunate to continue working with you after this calendar year, is I think there needs to be a better relationship with the Department of Agriculture. I know this sounds crazy, but the Department of within the Department of Administration, there's a Department of Planning that deals with agriculture. Also, the USDA. Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture. The reason I bring that up is because this is a rural community. There are some programs within the Department of Agriculture because of its ruralness. Now, I'm not talking agriculture. The first thing you think about is farming, but there is within there are things like, money for a firehouse in a rural community, money for health services in a rural community, and so forth. So within that area, that's something I want to look at and see what's available. And I think having someone in this position would be very helpful, because I think we can tighten up what the income eligibility is for the community, what the needs are for the community, and so forth. And have discussions with the medical center and having discussions with the fire department, volunteer fire department, I realize more and more that one of the things that we really want to work on is a changing of a definition, which I think the congressional delegation can do. I mean, there's a uniqueness of this island, which it's not the only one in the country. It's unique, but there are other places where because they're considered resort islands by some people, they don't get this, they're considered rural, but certain times they're not, and because of income, they're not in there. So one of the things I would like to do is work on enabling legislation at the federal level, which would change our category, the way they categorize us and so forth. We found this out with housing. They actually categorize us with the same way they categorize Westerly and Charleston and stuff like that, and that's not proper. So I know I'm going on that, but I understand where you're coming from.
Don't we still have some rural classifications?
We do. There's no question that Block Island is rural. Unfortunately, some of the things we're not able to get. So for instance, we got a letter from Department of Agriculture. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Yesterday. No, I think it was yesterday. And they said, we're interested in helping you out, but under the criteria right now, and it would be a 75% match. So if it was a $10 million project, they would pay 7.5 million of it. We qualified based on it by population, but by income level, we were over it. So so we are classified, but when they start, like, okay, you're classified, so let's have a discussion. And then the next category, we're not, and we can't have the discussion anymore. So we are, but we're missing out on a lot of things because of other areas. So when it comes to, open space, when it comes to population, when it comes to some of the services, yes, rural, agricultural. But when it comes to income and housing prices and things like that, no. And so that's the area. And we have to find a way to better define ourselves as not Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. I know you don't, I know the residents don't, but when they look at islands, that's the first thing they think about. And certainly we need to change that because the housing prices, although very high here, are higher there, and they have more residents and stuff. So that's one of the things that we need to work on.
I think they just had $26 million, say, a house sale over there.
Yeah.
I just looked in Nantucket to see what horrible thing is going to happen here next. We're not that far behind anymore.
And I think 40% of their, I don't think 40% of their island is just open space conservation and so forth. So they have some similar, although bigger size and scope. They have same kind of thing with affordable housing and open space and stuff. So yeah,
Their island isn't as pretty as ours either.
Nobody's island.
Thank you, Martha. Does the council have any more questions for Rick? Comments, anything like that? Thank you.
Great.
Chris Warfel?
Thank you. I need to catch the tide, so I'm glad you picked me first. I do want to reinforce what our lobbyist said about the USDA. With our classification, I know that not just the town, but the businesses are eligible for certain programs that you would not suspect. So I know in regards to energy, for example, Block Island businesses and as well as farms are eligible for USDA programs at a very good rate. I just wanted to reinforce that for you because I do know that for a fact. I'm really here for affordable housing. I'm part of a group that has been trying to move the town to create more affordable housing. There are two things that you said, if I can remember them, that I thought was of interest. Having gone through our ordinances that we believe could affect affordable housing, we find the current ordinances partly insufficient, I would say, and kind of confusing, counter-directed towards the goal of more affordable housing. So we're trying to rewrite them to make them more amenable to affordable housing, and that is a bear. And it's all people who are volunteers, and the access to resources that could help go through and coordinate all these different ordinances and try to simplify them for the improvement, more accessibility of attainable affordable housing would be fantastic. We have put before the town council changes to ordinance 513, which is a year-round housing, and we're trying to make that more like attainable affordable housing. With that one part that you had mentioned about getting expertise that could help us in that area, The other thing is obviously funding. And there, I don't know if in this money that is becoming available, if there are going to be carve outs per community, or I know that's why the council has been trying to move our median income levels. But it would be nice to know what kind of funding potentially could be available, because some of us believe there is other funding available within Block Island that could be used for attainable affordable housing. We just have to make a good argument for that. But just to create a budget, it would be good to know what potentially could be available for, and our interest is particularly apartments. And that's basically where I just wanted to have that statement for you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, sure, if you can right now.
I'll just address it really quick on this, and I've heard you loud and clear. I know that technical assistance for changing the improvement, the zoning and so forth, whatever is needed here, we can certainly help on that. But you mentioned potential funding for apartments and so forth. So I hear that both. I will get you an idea of what the budget looks like as quickly as possible. I'll get it to the council, they get share it. I will say one thing, this is very important. And when I first started doing some research on the island, even though I'm a Rhode Islander, and been out here a bunch of times, I started diving into the data. We need to do two things. One, we need to see what makes us unique in terms of statistically. We all know what makes us unique in terms of great community and stuff, but statistically, what makes us unique? The second thing is we need to, and I think that's part of my job and the council's job, is they've been very active coming to State House. Whether we like to hear this or not, if a lot of money comes to Block Island, people in areas like Pawtucket, West Warwick, Central Falls are going to say, oh, they said they're addressing housing, but all the money went out to Block Island. Those people don't need it. So we need to do a better job articulating why it's important, because we will get whacked if we don't do this in a smart way. So I just want to address that. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Anybody else have any, Sandra?
Sandra Kelly, a member of the Senior Advisory Committee. The initials are SAC. It's a pleasure meeting you, Mr. McCall, and I know you're going to be rather busy, but I'm going to advocate for our seniors on Block Island. There is a group, which I'm sure you are aware, there's a SAC group, it's called, and that's the Senior Agenda Coalition, and they mainly, I'm sure you are aware of them, and they mainly deal with legislative issues for seniors. And they have been advocating, I think, since 2004 or so, if I'm correct on that. These are the current bills that they are working with, although they may not directly deal with Block Island situations. But I just want you to keep an ear out for our seniors.
Yes.
We are in need on the island. That there are many services on the mainland which we cannot, use because of that water that's between us. And we're not building a bridge, I hope. So I just want to speak to our seniors. We have many needs. And I've also been in contact with RICTA.
Okay.
I didn't ask them for equipment. I didn't ask them for a driver. I asked them if we could get some monies because we need transportation for seniors and on the island. And we can handle the equipment and we can handle the drivers, but it would be nice to supplement a little bit with our monies. We also are hoping to start a senior building or a senior department or a senior service department. And again, we're all looking for monies. I realize that, but just to make you aware that we do have many seniors on the island.
Great.
Thank you very
I can
much.
respond to this. Can I take that list?
Sure, you may, absolutely.
I can respond to it too, and it's a pleasure meeting you. I've heard a lot about you. I know you used to be on that side of it. Weren't you? You were, are you on, oh, okay, I thought you were on the council. Okay, good, you're fine. So I just to be quick, I've had the pleasure of I've been in business 21 years, so 19 years, I've had the pleasure of representing an organization called Leading Age Rhode Island. Leading Age is the nonprofit side of long-term care, assisted living, adult day services, nursing homes, and independent housing. I was up at the State House last night probably till about 10 o'clock, testifying on legislation to bring more money into the senior programs in the state of Rhode Island. One of my former colleagues, a woman named Maureen Magret, who's one of the leaders of Senior Agenda Coalition. So I can definitely help you out on this area, and I assure you, not when I go up there just for leading age, and I'll do it for Block Island as well and explain that. And then we'll work on the funding piece as well.
Sandra, when you get home this afternoon, would you mind sending that list to the town clerk so that it gets distributed to the council? Or Rick, maybe you could send it to the town, I don't know,
Sure.
just so we have what our
You
lobbyist
want one
has.
of these copies? Oh, okay.
Send me a copy of it?
Yeah, that'd be great, just so we know what,
Electronically,
Okay.
probably be better than trying to scan it. I don't know how quick.
I just took it off the bulletin board, the internet today.
that'd be great, just so
I
we,
think that's as of April 14th, if I'm not mistaken, so it's fairly current.
thank you, Sandra, I just want to make sure we know what we're advocating for. Thanks. Anybody else? Pat Doyle?
My name is Pat Doyle, and we've resided here in our retirement for the last 20 years, homeowners for 30. And I'm here also to speak to the senior programs. I accessed the 2020 census information that was most telling about aspects of small towns to large. And in looking at New Shoreham, I found that our senior population percentage-wise is larger than most every other town in the state. It's also a fairly educated group of people who, up until fairly recently, we have the older people who are increasing. And I think when we talk about services on a very small island with perhaps no more than 400 people who would qualify as seniors, you can't talk about them as coming from a wealthy community, just as you don't talk about our school children here as needing any less because they're living in a wealthy community. They're aging, and you can't pick up a newspaper on any day that doesn't say the 3 pillars of healthy aging are nutrition. Well, we don't have a senior center as such. We now deliver up to 70 lunches, I believe, once a month. And the people who we deliver to under the Senior Coalition say, I wish you could stay and chat with me, but we don't have a chat with me center. And the second is the nutrition, the transportation issues of getting places such as coming to the center. But the most important one, I think, is the wellness, and wellness is key. The key to wellness is the socialization. So our senior programs have been run totally by volunteers, and some grant monies do come into it. But as you know, we wouldn't run a school with total volunteers. There needs to be an organizer and someone who knows about both federal, state, and foundation monies. And I believe today, in 2022, if there's money for anything throughout this country that's being spoken of, it's money for healthy aging. And so I would really like you to, and I'm so excited about your presentation today. It's wonderful. And to speak to the senior programs here that we do not have. And I've been in touch with a few senior directors in very small towns. And they all say, well, we have a Department on Aging here in our town. So there's many things that can impact seniors, whether it's right. So thank you.
Thank you. If it's okay, I will be back here, I think, in 10 days to 2 weeks. I'd love to have a meeting with you both separate and apart. If I could just I'll get an email from the town, if we could do that. But thank you for the comments. And like I said, I'd like to help you out. So in 10 days or so, I'll be back out here to meet with you.
Does anybody else have any short comments or questions or concerns for Rick? We have another item on the agenda, and I want to make sure we have ample time to speak to that before he's got to leave on the 11:45, right?
Someone give you a ride.
I'll give you a ride.
There's one thing I do notice, everybody likes to give you a ride. Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the council. I think one of the concerns I had when with the lobbyists was, are we gonna have direction? And it's clear the council has done that. So I want to thank you for that. And then also, I think the presentation that was excellent. I also want to acknowledge the fact that I think the transparency or this being open is extremely beneficial for 2 reasons. One, not only the educational aspect of it, but we have an idea of what actually is being done. So I thank you for that, and I hope that can continue with that end. And I think regardless, I think it was brought up, if we're not in the room and not at the table, it may not be a guarantee, But if you're not there to guarantee you're not gonna have anything, so, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Item number 2 is update on the state police for the summer of 2022. Obviously, everybody knows this is our discussion. Rick, can you just give us an update from your end and what's going on up at the state?
Sure. So it became aware to me shortly after being retained by the town, maybe within 30 days or so, that that the state police had come to the town. Marion had updated me on what was going on. And the town, from what I gather, or not what I gather, the state police basically said, in years past, we've provided assistance on the weekends during the summer months. We will continue to do that, but we can no longer do it at no cost. Their issue was that the police academies have been having less and less people applying to be a state police officers, and that they're in a major funding area. Not funding. They're in a major problem with the workforce. They don't have enough in the workforce. That has been confirmed. I've watched numerous hearings, and they have confirmed that they really are understaffed. That is fact. That is not a conjure, but that is fact. I did have a conversation with Marianne numerous times and other members of the council. I actually spoke very briefly with the police chief, Superintendent Manny at a hearing. He was pretty curt with me. There was a discussion, and Marion can fill everyone in more than that, but she had a discussion with them in support of the town, saying, why are we paying for this? These are state roads. Every other community has the state police that don't ask to pay for it. Their response was, well, we have for years been doing this, but we can no longer do it. The town of Exeter, which does not have a police department, they are now going to have to pay. And the Bridge and Turnpike Authority, which has had state police presence, is not paying. They have to pay as well. The reason you're doing this is because we don't have enough personnel. So theoretically, after a police officer works 40 hours or whatever, they now have to find 2 40-hour employees that are willing to come to the island on the weekend. I had conversations with the governor's staff. I actually had one with Marianne in her office. It was a little contentious. My concern obviously was that this is, upon the council. My other concern was the precedent in which it sends for future years, which has always been my focus. But again, at the end of the day, I work at your direction, not my direction. And so I've had conversation with them. My goal is to put options on the table for all of you and where we are. Last week, I had a conversation. I had lunch with the governor. The governor was there along with Eva Mancuso, who is an attorney who has left a very successful practice and now works for the governor. She has been in conversation with Marianne in the past. She had a conversation with Superintendent Manny and so forth. I had a conversation with them and I told them the situation here. I mentioned they were state roads. I mentioned that it would be a public relations disaster if something ever happened on a state road in which the state police have a presence there. He understood it, but he felt that because of the not enough employees within the state police, that he had no choice but to do this. Very supportive of the state police and what they were trying to do. I spoke to him and said, well, I'll have to go back to the council, but I'm very concerned about the precedent sets later on. They make the decision, but I am concerned how this precedent would be set. He assured me, and he said he wanted me and Marianne and whoever else to work with them to find a final solution on this for years going forward. After it was over, I've told that to Marianne, and I think I've spoken to the first warden, the second warden, and other members of the council. So that was done as well. Additionally, I've had conversations with Representative Filippi, and I've had a conversation with Senator Sosnowski. Both of them were very clear. They will follow whatever lead the council gives them. They have their own personal opinions, but they want to make sure that whatever the council does, they will support the council. The only option I can provide for you as you have this discussion is, hey, can the community, you just said to, Rick, you just said they have almost $700 million in surplus this current fiscal year. Certainly they come up with $47,000. There's no question they have money on that. How they allocate it, obviously, I'm not a legislator, they make that decision. But let me talk about timing, because that's important for you all. If we are to send a letter to the delegation, Representative Filippi and Senator Cisnowski, we need to do that quickly. The budget negotiations will be happening over the course of the month of May, which obviously is Sunday. And they will vote on the budget, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, sometime in June. We won't know if we have the money until probably June 20th to July 1st. And the money wouldn't be allocated back to the community until sometime in August, which obviously is in the middle of the summer and so forth. So that is the situation that I know of right now. Whatever I'm asked to do, I will do. I know that the council has some concerns on it on both ends. And again, I will work with whatever you need, and I will provide whatever resources in terms of time and set up meetings on that. I have had, like I said, I spoke to the governor last Friday directly over lunch, explained our concerns about this. And it was apparent that he wants to support his state police department, and that's where he was right now. But he also, I was very concerned about the precedent set, and I also said it wasn't fair for the council when we talk about senior issues, when we talk about housing issues, and we talk about transportation issues and so forth, that we would have to go up every year to ask for money in the state budget of the police, because I'm concerned that if I was the police department and said, well, the community of Block Island, we don't have to put that money in there because the community of Block Island, they have a lobbyist, they'll go up and get that money. And so as an advocate for you, I'd be more concerned that I'm spending time advocating for something that should be in there, while at the same time I could be advocating for housing or other stuff. So that's the situation right now. I know it's a discussion you all need to have, but I just want to let everyone know, whatever money you seek, we wouldn't know till the end of June. And obviously that puts you in a dilemma, because I can't tell you, I can't say, oh, it's going to happen, but you have to wait. You have to go through the budgetary process, in which 75 state reps and 38 state senators are also trying to get their voice in there as well.
Thank you. Council.
I'll start. First of all, we have, I think, an unintentional disinformation campaign coming out here. Block Island Times front page, and I know they read it upstate, even though they say they don't know where we are, said that we sent $3.2 million to the state in meals taxes and other taxes. That number, and I'm one who said it, I pulled it out very specifically because it was only meals tax, which I stated. And the meals tax is that 1% tax, so it's very easy to figure out how much we get multiplied by 7, that's how much the state gets. The others are all those crazy convoluted, the hotel tax, the sales tax, we don't know where it's coming from, gasoline tax, to try to figure that one out. We've taken in hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been transmitted up to hundreds and hundreds of thousands in tax conveyance stamps with the real estate transfers particularly the last few years. We're talking about property values on Block Island. It's really benefiting the state. They're getting a lot of money from us. And obviously, I'm still upset about this. It was such an egregious breach of facts I've seen the damage this can do in the past. And I know how long it's taken, and nobody's supposed to say that out loud, but it's the truth. And that's why I'm really glad we've got somebody upstate. I didn't, see this thing coming. But it's really, really important that anybody be disabused of the notion that has any bearing in truth whatsoever. That's just not the fact. That said, we've always had state police. The Bridgeton Turnpike is an authority. Where's the Turnpike? That has no bearing on anything, and Exeter has no standing police force, I understand. And that is part of the state charter. isn't that from the state charter, the state constitution, or the state law? It's some state.
Yeah, I don't
regulation.
know why they don't have one.
No, I mean, the fact that they have to pay for the state police.
Well, this
I'm
will be the
sorry.
first time they had to pay for it, which is ironic. And I did tell the governor, it's, it's not fair. You're penalizing the town of New Shore, who has a police department. It needs extra help. But the town of Exeter chooses not to have one. And he said, I'm actually talking to them. They need to get a police department. I
Okay,
gotta be careful what my conversations were, but.
But my only point was that we are being treated very differently from anybody else. We're looking at, as you know, 3 people for 2.5 months. And I mean, when I was a kid, that was the only police we had. Somebody can bear me out here. We had like a semi-local cop in the summertime and a couple of stadies. That's all we had out here. Obviously, the world has changed differently. I worked downtown. 2 summers ago, I saw what happened when the state police came in. It was like the net had been thrown over the lions. You just have one of those cars, a couple of those troopers in those uniforms, and things just go. State trooper pulls somebody over. It's like the E.F. Hutton ad. Everybody stops. It's extraordinary the difference a couple of people in one or 2 vehicles can make. And we have been put. And 2 years ago, we did have a huge influx, and I think a lot of it was from Rhode Island. And I think that's because last summer wasn't the same. The behavior wasn't we were afraid it was going to continue. It wasn't as bad. But we give so much, I'm repeating myself, I know, but we give so much money to the state, or the state collects so much money from us. And they're arguing over, how much is it down to now? It was
$47,
$47,000?
$45,000.
$45,000? So obviously I am not in favor. For state police, and I think the precedent is we've been through this before, we've had to fight it off before, and it's the nose under, I hate going back to these cliches, it's the nose under the Campbell's tent.
I think what we need to decide today is what the council wants to do with this situation. We've been told, Mary Ann's been told by the governor's office that we're gonna have to pay this money. I think, and when did these conversations start? They pretty much started last June, right?
What started last June was that Manny wanted us to pay for 2 troopers. We asked them to provide something in writing to us and we never got anything.
Okay, so we're here now in May of 2022 on a discussion that started last June. The clock is ticking. This is my attitude on the whole thing. We can send a letter. We've been told by Rick. The governor's office has told Mary Ann. The governor's office has told our lobbyists. And when I was at the State House and we were testifying, I spoke to the governor's office and I was told that we're going to have to pay. And I was told exactly what you were told, that we can work next year to make this happen. I know there's been some statements out there, from people that are like, if you do it once, you're going to have to do it again. But we should go to the state with creative solutions to this. They don't have the staff. I get that. You listen to our own chief of police. He's having a hard time finding bodies out there. I agree with Martha. I agree with everything Martha said, but the longer we wait, we've been told, no, we're paying. We've been told by everybody multiple times. The longer we wait, the pool gets smaller and smaller for our police chief to find the help that he needs for what we need for the summer. That's my concern. I know Mary Ann sent out a draft letter last night to send out. I guess it would be sent to whoever to have a meeting with the governor, I guess, right? Again, I had asked at one of the budget meetings, when are we going to have a resolution? And the answer was 2 weeks. It's been over 2 weeks. It's almost 3. A letter to the governor, I think, is only, and maybe you can help me with this, is only going to extend the no answer. Meanwhile, we don't know if we're going to have that money for our own police chief to go find that help that he needs from a pool that's getting smaller and smaller every single day or week. So I think if the council wants to send a letter, that's fine. I think, but we have a financial town meeting on Monday, and I think we should add that money to the budget on the financial town meeting. That's my opinion, because we're going to get told no again. I think that's going to be the ultimate answer. And that's my opinion on that. Sven?
So, and just to put it on the record, you and I have different opinions, and that's fine.
Yep.
I don't want to really put on the budget. I don't want to use words like extortion, but I will come very close. I think this is wrong. I think what is happening, doesn't matter how we got here, we are here. I think it's wrong that the state police is considering this. I think it's wrong that the governor is supporting this. These are state roads. We're a major part of the state. We're a major part of tourism, which is a huge state initiative. And we're talking about 45,000. I'm not as worried about bridging to that August timing you talked about, Rick. I think we can do that, but I think it is the responsibility of the state, of the governor, and of the state police to support Block Island and the state roads, and I don't want to put it in the budget.
So I think we can decide if we're going to send that letter.
I redrafted the letter because I think a letter makes some sense as as a step next. I have to say, just because this particular aspect of it drives me crazy, for anyone, a business, a government, to say, sorry guys, we don't have staff, but if you'll pay us a little extra, we got staff, is intellectually dishonest, in my opinion. If you want to establish a new statewide policy that towns that require what the state police consider extra services must pay for those, then Newport should be paying. There's a whole range of towns that should be paying. And that, if that's a policy conversation we want to have, I guess I'm happy to have it. But this, it does feel, as Martha said, Andre said, Sven said, it does feel like a singling out. And in some ways, I think that's perhaps what offends me, because this is not a policy conversation, nor, given that they're willing to take money to give us staff, is it really a staffing issue. I agree with all of the data on staffing. I understand. But again, to say, well, if you give us a few extra bucks, we could probably take care of that for you. As I said to somebody, it's sort of like, going to your favorite restaurant, everybody around's eating steak, and your server says, we don't have any steak tonight, but if you give us $100, we'd be happy to bring you a steak.
That's not true. None of that is true.
It is true. It is absolutely true.
It's overtime that the state police, that it's overtime because we went through this.
No, their rationale is that they don't have the staff.
They don't have the staff, but they have to pay them overtime. That's where the money's coming from. It's overtime to send them out here. The staff that they do have. It's not like a steak. It's our state. It's the safety of the people who visit here.
I mean, if that's really where you're going to go, if you don't understand analogy and metaphor, I'm sorry, perhaps.
Oh, I fully understand analogy and metaphor. But the fundamental problem here is we didn't know about this problem until February 19th. Yet these discussions were going on since last June. Our senator and our representative both told us when we were at the state, we'd be happy to help you, but it's a little late. Okay, so this is where we are in the situation we are this year, because this council was not informed. That's the fundamental problem here. We could have searched out we could have searched through our lobbyists. We could have searched for those creative ideas. And we could have, I've even thinking of them, like, what about Commerce? Commerce spends and advertises to send people to all these places in Rhode Island. Maybe Commerce could have sent some money to the Heavily, but again, it's at the last hour. So here we are.
I fundamentally agree with you, Andre, that we are where we are. right? I don't disagree with you. I think where we differ is that I don't think it's right for us to pay for this. I just really don't. And maybe that's,
I agree with you.
you
I
know,
agree with-
so
I agree with
if
you.
it's,
Okay.
if the money comes from some other agency, fine. You know, I don't really care how the state keeps its
But
books.
it's not gonna happen this year. That's the problem, okay? I agree with you 100%, but as we get into this argument with the state has dug their heels in. This council has apparently dug their heels in, the majority of it has. So, you know who's falling through the cracks in this argument is our chief of police and his ability to ensure the safety of the roads this summer in this town. That's my fundamental concern, because you know how horrible 2020 was. I don't want to go back there. Martha, I agree with you. Having a state trooper here is much more effective just visually than the local guys. People respect the state trooper. It's just a fundamental thing. If we don't have them, because again, it's the staffing issue with the state police. It's not a steak. And I know your analogy, but that is the fundamental problem for me, is that we need our chief, our town, our businesses need the state police here. We need to be able to confirm that they're going to be coming here. And every single day we drag our feet on this, the pool gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Okay, I'm gonna say something. We received a budget. The request was in the budget. The recommendation that came from the manager who had worked with the finance director was not to include that item in the budget. 4 of the 5 people at this table said, we're not paying it. We erred in not doing an up or down vote that night, apparently, because as far as I can tell, we have one person who's been fighting this battle. The rest of us all made ourselves clear where we were, where we stood. That's 4 of us.
And I made my position clear.
Right.
So,
We should have had an up or down vote.
well, I think we don't need one. I think it's abundantly clear where we all stand on this.
Well, if we'd had an up or down vote, we wouldn't be, the conversation wouldn't have been going on and on the way it is.
If I can, Andre, my goal, and Rick mentioned this before, my goal is that in the budgets that they're going to be working through, assuming that there's excess, we are going to push very, very hard. I think our lobbyists will push very hard, town manager, to help find that money within the budget excess to cover the 45. If there's a timing gap, and I'll let the town manager and the director, finance director figure that out, you know, we'll deal with it. But having, to your earlier request, putting that in the budget now before the FTM, I think is wrong. I think in principle, it's wrong. I think what we're being asked to do is wrong. And I think it's egregious. So in my opinion, I'm not gonna go down the road of wrong, in my opinion. And so I think we should stick where we are, keep pushing back, and let's trust that the good wins at the end.
Let me just address this. I know I have to leave, and I don't know how long this conversation has to continue or will continue. 2 things. 1, I will work on getting a meeting with the governor for the council as quickly as possible. It's abundantly clear. He needs to hear the concern here, and it's abundantly clear you need to hear his. So, and you know, he needs to hear this. So I will work on that as soon as possible. Won't be before Monday town meeting, but I'll do that. Second thing is, I just want to be clear on this, because again, I'm at your direction. Just the fact that we have to go to Senator Cisnowski, Representative Filippi, and use, you know, our time to get this money this year. If I'm the state police, I'm saying they got a pretty good lobbyist, and they got 2 really good, they got great legislators. Look they were able to get this money. So don't worry about it. Next year, we'll get it in there. So just something to think about as you go forward. The good news is, maybe I come back and say, hey, great news, but we were able to get $45,000 in the budget to pay for it this summer. That's a good news for this year, but the bad news is, we showed success in getting money in the budget, which means next year they can do it again. So, you know, I think the best solution, just my personal opinion, is, if you don't mind, I'll set something up with the governor's office immediately, maybe even as early as Monday, and hopefully get the governor on that phone call as well. And, you know, If
But there's
that,
also a chance he won't meet with us, because we've been told 4 or 5 times already that,
I've heard loud and clear from everybody here that you want to just have one more, have a discussion. So I will do that.
thank you.
Do we also
Do you
want to
need a
continue
second?
to pursue funding via our legislative representatives to get a budget adjustment?
So my suggestion would be, Mary, it's a great question. My suggestion would be on the February right back, I'll call the governor's office, the Senator Cisnowski, whoever called with today. So I'll bring it up to her when I talk to her today, and Representative Filippi. I'll let them know about this hearing today, the conversation that took place, and strongly recommend that they're aware of not strongly, they're aware of it, but I will let them know once again, and I will set up a meeting with the governor's office. I'm going to call Eva Mancuso on the ferry right back.
So the letter that we got last night,
But that was, as far as I remember, that was just a draft. That hasn't gone, nothing's, yeah, so that'll be on.
right, what are we gonna do with?
Nothing with that letter until we hear.
That is what I'm hearing, is that the consensus of the council?
Until we hear from Rick.
Yeah.
That would be mine.
I hope to have an answer for you by the end of business today from the governor's office. That's I will work on it on the ferry right.
And that would be a meeting with the governor, a Zoom meeting
Yeah,
with the
just-
governor,
Yeah,
with the whole town council.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
yeah. Again, I will work it with it. The governor's got a schedule, but that's my job, so I will work on it.
Thank
Yep.
you.
I just need a ride back.
I'll give you a ride back.
Check and see.
Bill?
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't think that we should change state. There's any question about that. This is the third time this has happened during my career where they wanted to send us a bill. The state is about as flush with money as it's ever going to be. This is coming down to a dollar situation. As far as the state police goes, we have a great working relationship with them. We have, and we will continue. This is about money at the end of this. And the fact is, if the state has as much money as it does now, what makes us think when we don't have this money down the year, that's gonna be different for us? And the other thing is, I think as far as the, I understand that if they have constraints and it's high back, well, it's around, it's just state roads. How they can make go for the dead, open up our first boat, even the last boat. What are some of these other options? It's like an all or nothing. And the fact is, these troopers that patrol, they patrol the entire state, all of them. And we shouldn't be excluded from that. And if the belt has to be tightened in a town, it should be equally tightened in every town. But we're being totally cut off in that. And the reality is, we had about 3 or 4 years where we didn't have state police. We survived, we got through it, it wasn't ideal. And whether it was financial, whatever it might be. So I think it's a bad precedent to do it. I think that we will I'll jump in for it. But
Thank you.
see you.
Have a good trip.
See you.
Have-
Wait
Wait a minute, see, leave it? Oh. Have a nice conversation on the way to the boat, Rick.
And my main thing is, I hate to see it end up being this Mexican, with the leaders on Mexican standoff at this end of it, you know what I mean? I'm hoping that Senator Sanowski, or Mary Ann can work something out, let's get back to what it's about, financial thing, and where can they find some financial, the money in order to achieve it? And if they can't, then what is the alternative you're doing? You're saying none whatsoever? That shouldn't be acceptable if you meet with the governor. The fact is, if you're telling us that, hey, they can only come up for a day, during the day, however, it's going to cut back, that should be looked at. This all or nothing, let's say, is wrong from that end. But we've supported Governor McKee, this town has, okay? He's been very good to this town, as lieutenant governor has come up all the time. I'm very optimistic that he will sit down and listen. I think when this is put across, at least there should be an open opportunity from there.
So when you compare, this has happened 3 times in the past.
A couple, sorry.
But like, has it been the same situation with the lack of help, with Moynihan's lack of being able to find qualified people, with the state police trying to find qualified people? Has it been overtime issues where they have to backfill at the station to go around the overtime at barracks?
When the Garcia position came in, that officers had to pay X amount of money overtime, and so they only had lieutenants to send out, and that was the first time it came through. I think with Colonel Doherty, they were trying to come up with money, and they were gonna send it in. And the way the state law is written, like when Chief Monahan came in, if the municipality asks the state police to come into your community because of there's an issue, whatever it might be, then you're responsible to pay for that. But this is how it is. This is the regular patrol of the state that we have. We're not asking to run the police department. We're not going to come in and with in the town, Exeter. Okay, Exeter, what happened was, there was great money that came through, the state police applied for originally, it was the Cops and Care Act. And that's how that started at that end of it, where they came in, because they did not have any police department, and they wanted the state to come in and basically give it a police presence, because they didn't fund it at all. It's totally two different situations, same thing with the bridge in Turnpike. They wanted to have 2 troopers that ride back and forth on the bridge, that's fine, that's over and above. But if they don't fund that, they still have troopers that drive over the bridge to do regular patrol. So I just think that, I think what has to happen is, we need to sit down and say, listen, if it gets to the point where we're saying we can't afford to bring them, and I agree with Keith, I mean, you either don't have it and the manpower's not there, but if you know, this comes down to nothing but a dollar thing. And, from the money aspect, so if you have the money, guess what? The personnel is found and it can be done for that end, so that's where it doesn't happen for them anyway. And at the very least, I would ask, if you're asking us to, if you're tighten the belt throughout the state, I hope you're doing the same with us and say, okay, we're not totally cutting it out, because otherwise you're saying the town of Strong gets zero presence from state police, under this. And the other thing to what Rick was saying, we're talking about funding for after July, so what about May and June? Well, what about, you know, what, the funding should already be there from that, so this is about a money thing, so.
It's 15 weeks. The funding is for 15 weeks.
When does the fiscal year start?
It's July.
That's right, so
But
before
right.
July, there should be funding for the.
But it's- But we're funding, to be clear, this money, the 45,000 is for 15 weeks. Okay.
So up until July 1st, we should have some presence then, if we're talking about it's a money thing, so anyways.
So let me just play devil's advocate. Okay, so we need the state police here. Okay, if we didn't have the state police and we needed this town to, and the town would have to hire these officers to take the place of the state police, how much would those 2 officers cost the town? Because the town would have to send them out here year round. You know what I mean? The town would have to hire them year round with all the benefits and housing and whatnot. Well, I'm just saying, if we funded our own police, if we funded more police officers to the point where we wouldn't need these state police, how much would that cost the town?
Well.
It would cost a lot more money.
I think what Martha touched on that we keep missing in this conversation is the presence of the state police. As well as it being a financial thing, when the state police out here, it reminds people we're part of the state. And therefore, if we're part of the state, you gotta follow the rules of the road, you gotta go the 25 miles an hour, you have to do this. It's the presence of the state police that is also huge, and we cannot forget that and miss that. We're part of the state of the Rhode Island. The state police, when they come out here, is a presence, just like their presence everywhere else. Even myself personally, if I'm on 95 and I see a state trooper, my foot comes off the gas, even though I'm going 55 miles. So the presence is important.
But I will argue that the presence is, they do more than just a presence here. They augment the police force. They do. They don't work for them, but they do the same job. They run into the bars, when there's fights, and they do the emergency things that they do on the mainland, like when they're needed in different towns. They do that when they're here.
Sounds like you should work for the governor's office, not for the town council, because you're not supporting what we're trying to do here. And I think it's really unfortunate, because the reality around this is, we have a good relationship with the state police. I think everyone agrees on the concept. This is just coming down to a money issue, that they have a problem this year. We're sympathetic to it, we want to support them with it. Hopefully they can find some money, the General Assembly can, to help them out of this one-time crisis, right? Because I'll have more pressure.
I'm just trying to make sure that our police chief, a top-notch police chief that we hired, that we were extremely happy with last year, who completely cleaned this place up after years of under-policing. And that's what I'm trying to advocate for. And right now, he cannot get the help that he needs while this argument's going on. If that's the town council?
Undermining the position of the council. I really do.
Well, that's absolutely fine. Then don't vote for me in November. You have that choice.
But in the meantime, between here and there, and that, the fact is, you can't take the positions, you can't hear what people want to say to you about this.
I'm listening to it. I'm giving you my opinion.
I know, you're giving your.
I'm not undermining anything because there's 4 people against me here.
No one's against you, Andre. We all want.
Against the attitude, against my opinion on the topic.
We all agree, we want the state police to be here. We all agree it's good for the police department. The only thing we agree is, where can that funding come from? The state has come up with a problem, and I think we should all collectively work with the state, through our legislators, through the general assembly, through their whatever budget, to get their funding, so we get through that.
And that's what I just said. We didn't know there was a problem. Okay, that's the problem here. That's the root of the problem. We didn't know until it was too late, when these discussions were going on since June.
I have to respectfully disagree with that comment. We on numerous occasions, the chief on numerous occasions, and I know this council well enough. If I came to you and said, oh, by the way, I've been told this, the first thing you would said to me, provide me something in writing so that we could have voted on it. We did not get anything in writing from the state police until I sent a letter and received a response back from Colonel Manny in February. Once I got that response, it was immediately emailed to the town council. So I think we're getting caught up in semantics here and getting caught up in stuff we shouldn't be caught up with. We need to decide how we want to proceed here.
I think we've decided how we're going to move forward
I think
here.
everyone here in this room, including myself, supports Chief Monahan. I don't want any to walk out of this room thinking without that we're not in support of Chief Monahan. That is not the case here. We're all supportive of Chief Monahan and the improvements and what has happened. At the same time, we want to be sure as we move forward that that support can continue and we're not here year after year requesting the state police, because we do have state roads. We are part of the state of Rhode Island and they should be patrolling our streets. And yes, do they go into bars? Yes, they do. Just like as I was watching the Bryan College game, the state police went into that facility when there was an issue. We don't ask them to patrol in the bars. They go in when there's an incident. They're not in the bars all the time. They're on the roads. They're patrolling. I've seen them, someone walk in the street with a drink in their hands, just saying, please dump that, just like our police department does. So I think we need to have a front here. And if we're going to speak to the governor, we need to be sure that we are clear with him that we are part of the state of Rhode Island. And therefore the patrol should be here, as they have been for a number of years. And we should not have to pay for it. Just like Mohegan Bluffs, that's owned by DEM. Main tourist attraction for the state of Rhode Island. Many folks go up there. I
What does that
think
have
the
to do
police
with the
should be
state?
part of
I don't-
patrolling that area. If it's a state park. So if it's a state park, we have state parks, we should have the state police here.
The position I'm taking is that we've been told multiple times by the governor what the answer is. And every time we drag our feet on this, the pool gets smaller and smaller. I'm not saying you don't support Moynihan.
It's my understanding the staff has already been identified by the state police to come out here. It is strictly a financial issue.
Exactly.
So we need to resolve that financial issue.
And that's the
And
issue.
I just do not think that we should, at this point, not to give up and not continue to have the dialogue and to continue to find a way that this can be financed by the state and not financed by the taxpayers of New Shore. That's where I think we are at this point.
I agree with you 100%, but this came to us late. This came to us late. And we didn't have the chance.
But I do want to go back to, we are where we are, and I think.
We are
that's
where
the-
we are.
Well, but that's the most important thing, which is, I think in principle, it's wrong for us to have to pay for state police to be on state roads, and we are part of the state. And so if it's a budget issue, let's have the conversation with the governor and find out how he can find that budget. And if it's a matter that, hey, look, I can only find, a little bit like Bill saying, I can only find 30. Okay, maybe the officers come out Saturday morning and leave Sunday at noon. Okay, what is the discussion? But for us to pay for what should be a basic right of being part of the state, I think it's wrong.
I think the discussion is to give Moynihan what Moynihan has asked for and not try to whittle down hours or whittle down what he needs.
Let's remember, it's a 13 point or 14% increase in the budget.
It's not a 13.
Well, I'm just
It's
saying,
not.
there's extra dollars we even put in for
It's not-
cameras, things like that.
I
So
understand
think
that.
we are supporting.
But when you say 14, whatever percent you're saying, the police budget has been running over budget 3 to 4% for multiple years. So we're not funding 14%. It's less than that because the budget has been over every single year.
But
We're
funding-
making up for the budget, but it's not that, it's less than the percent you're saying.
Well, all I know is the budget says 13.8, so I assume it's 13.8.
But if you gotta go looking back and see how much over budget they were the years before that.
That would tell me that he may be over budget this year, but 13.8 is a real number for a very different reason.
Sandra,
Anyway.
Sandra, we can beat this dead horse. I'd
Yeah,
like to wrap it up.
I don't think there's a motion.
I thought we were sent a month ago, so.
Sandra, do you have a comment?
Sandra Kelly. I have to agree with the majority. We should not be paying for this. You know, we are on state roads that haven't been repaid since 1978, if I'm correct, and are really in bad shape, but it's nothing to do with this, but I don't think we should be paying for the state police.
Thank you. David?
When you first started discussing this and Rick was outlining the current status, he said something that was very subtle and I wasn't sure I understood it correctly, so I just clarified with him before he left. He wasn't saying it as directly as I'm going to say it to you, but he told me, he said it almost with the same intent. For the first hour, we heard him talk about all the things that he's making solid progress on in terms of big dollars for all of our priority needs in the town, the things that we absolutely can't fund. He said, hopefully others here heard it better than I heard it, but he suggested that this may not be a fight you want to take and give yourselves a black eye with the legislature, the governor's office, the staff, and all of the other organizations upstate that he's been laying good groundwork on and seem favorable to the way we fit or don't fit in the various programs and what can be done to help. So I would just caution you about not being penny wise and pound foolish and jeopardizing all of the good things that we hope to get in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars in community things that we absolutely need just as badly as the $47,000. I'm not telling you how, I'm not taking a position at all because I honestly don't know. It's a dilemma. So I just show you the caution that this is beginning to feel a lot like the mopeds and seceding from the state. We don't want to get a black eye, having hired lobbyists to lead us down a better path. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And the council and the town manager has been told that. We do know that. We do know that. They have their principles and I agree with them. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I guess I got to clarify, like, I get it. We could have the possibility of doing irreparable damage with the state police over this issue over $47,000. That's my opinion on that. But I get it.
Explain to me how we look bad for not paying $47,000 and the state looks good.
That's my statement.
They've got better spin masters than Hollywood.
That's
Washington DC.
That's all I'm gonna say. That's what I'm saying, Martha. I'm not gonna explain it.
I know what
I
you're
don't, there's
saying.
no explanation to it.
Can I call a motion to?
Adjourn?
Yes. Second, you, Keith.
We're not-
Martha, all those in favor?
We're leaving this without an up-down vote.
Well, it
I don't
doesn't,
think we have
there's
an
no
independent
action on
vote.
it.
That
Not
was-
that we had left it before we, not that we had left it, but Rick was gonna reach out to the governor, we're gonna have a conversation with the governor, withhold doing the letter.
Yes.
Based upon that conversation, we're gonna talk about what we do next.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
As long as that's-
Motion on the floor.
That's what I heard.
All those in favor?
All those in, aye.
Martha, you in favor of adjourning?
Oh, I'm gonna be here.
No, right now. We want to adjourn now. Okay. Yes, Mark? Please.
I know. Then more